out in Carroll County.
How's your weather?
It keeps getting pretty stormy. I'm shocked that I haven't lost my internet connection yet.
I figure it's going to hit here about 1:30, I think, and then we got another hour or so, and we're going to get walloped again this weekend. So
Yeah.
All right, quick
And then there's-
scenario. We're going to be 70 degrees this weekend.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, Fran, you're not getting the snow because we're supposed to have snow here on Thursday, I'm hearing.
Oh, aren't you just lucky? And then you'll have slush, and then you'll have black ice. I love it. That's why I live over here.
thing about Georgia, though, you can have 70 degrees weather and still have 4 inches of rain by the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly, Tim.
Yeah, if you don't like it, wait 5 minutes, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's supposed to be 34 here tomorrow night, or out where I'm at, Tim.
Yeah, it's about the same here in Atlanta and going at. So yeah, I got to pull all the plants back in tonight. So
So Roberta's plants will all get sort of fuzzed.
yes.
My tulips are up about this much, and my crocuses are already done. So living in the banana belt of Canada is lovely.
Oh man.
And Barb and I have matching haircuts. I got my spring haircut. It's got it all buzzed off. So
Yay, it looks good.
thanks.
Hey, can I just point out that Jared Carrington is a man of his word. His Arkansas Razorbacks lost the other night to my Baylor Bears, and sure enough, he changed his background. So, very happy about that.
It pains me to have this up right now, but like like an idiot, I suggested the bet and then I lost it. So like, damn it, now I got to do it. So.
Yep, I appreciate it. I just wanted to point that out so everyone sees, knowing that you're a big Arkansas fan.
Not everybody would have really noticed if it hadn't been pointed out, Jared.
Right.
Oh, I was going to make sure, I got a speaking moment so everybody can see the background and Greg could have his moment. But yeah, he beat me to it.
I tell you, rookie season is still hanging in there. We'll see what happens.
And even with that, Jared's leading our SCTC bracket pool. So I don't know what's up with that, but oh well. Still
Blind
a lot
luck.
of fun.
Nothing but blind luck.
Well,
We could have
rumor
given-
has it I'm going to be taking 4 days off with no technology for Easter weekend. I don't know if I can do it. I
I
have a
don't
bet.
know, Roberta.
I have a bet with my team.
Well, you know what? I'm going to text you just to see if it's true.
Roberta, you have to do it. When I did it, when I went to Hill Island and St. Lawrence River, best thing I ever did. The laptop stayed closed the whole 4 days.
Yeah.
And we need to say hi to Carrie. She's using her camera today. Good job, Carrie.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi, thank you. Practicing video.
You.
Hey, Nancy.
Kevin, how's the weather by you today, Mr. Keeler?
It is, it's getting colder. So it was lovely yesterday. And so we're expecting a centimeter of snow maybe overnight, right? So it's getting right down to freezing. So it started warm. I walked my husky at just after 6 a.m. and that was the warmest it's going to be.
Oh, tough.
It was like, it was like summer yesterday. It felt kind of like at least spring, summery weather, right? But
Yeah,
it's going to be winter tomorrow.
Yeah. So your husky must have thought it was summer, right, with the coat?
Oh yeah, no, and he's okay with the heat. The humidity he doesn't like. So it was warm, but he was totally fine.
Okay. Very cool. Well, hey everybody, it's 5 after, so let's get started. Thank you all for being here once again for our weekly fireside chat. Of course, most of you know me. I'm Steve Layden. I'm Executive Vice President for the Society of Communications Technology Consultants. and your moderator and your host as usual. We are on Fireside Chat number 49, if you can believe it. And we have covered just about every topic fathomable, from COVID-19 to Kerry's Law to security to contact center to UC to AI. We've had a series of a number, and of course, AEX, TEM. So there'll be another one of those, by the way, in the next coming weeks by popular demand. It was so impactful last week, Cindy and the group. Thank you, Cindy. That we will have another full session on this, because we cut Art short, and there was not only that, but a lot of interest from everybody on taking that next step with the TEM EX group. So great job, Cindy, and we will see you again in a couple of weeks. So we have actually Kevin Keeler on this week. Kevin is a colleague of mine on BC Strategies, or UC, it was UC Strategies, now bcstrategies.com. He's one of 20 experts, along with myself and a few of us SCTC members. And all Kevin focuses on, which I think is incredible, really, is Microsoft. He's an independent consultant, okay? But he literally deep dives and drinks, sleeps, and breathes Microsoft. And I figured, you know, what better individual, you know, to have and explain what's going on in the world of Microsoft, you know, than Kevin. So in addition to that, I've had like 4 possible opportunities in the last 4 weeks, with the possibility of clients looking, or prospects looking to go kind of like, you know, get to go on the Monopoly board, you know, collect the 200 and go right to Microsoft Teams, basically moving off of a legacy system. So a little shocked on, you know, some of how some of these, you know, clients and prospects are responding. And I figured, again, you know, knowledge is power. So Kevin's going to share all of that knowledge, you know, with us today and next week as well. So let me get my screen up here. And again, I'll take the first part of this, and we will give the screen over to Kevin shortly. So again, we're on number 49. I have a quick poll for everybody. I do these weekly. So today's poll is about, first question is about Teams significance. So the question is, how serious are prospects and clients considering moving to Teams in 2021? Okay, so here's the poll, everybody. You can all respond. Okay, and I'll give everybody about 30, 35 seconds. And Kevin, I think the results can actually, you know, help you in terms of, you know, some of your thoughts here as we go forward. Just give me another 8 or 9 seconds here, and we will close it out. Okay, let me just finish this up here. So let me stop it. Let me end the poll. Let me just take a quick snapshot, which I do so I can save it.
Steve, while you're doing that, I will also vouch for, because you guys know I'm a nerdy tech. I will also vouch for Kevin's technical depth and abilities, and in our crazy migration to Teams, Kevin was helpful with us with the Fox Group migration. So big thumbs up. He knows his shit.
Stop. We're being recorded. I'm kidding.
Thank you, Roberta.
Okay, so anyway, so here are the results. Very serious, 31%, followed by serious, 29%, followed by somewhat serious, 24%, extremely serious. So interesting. So thank you for that. So let me stop the results. Let me go to question number 2 here. I wish I could find who that individual is. Okay, so here's your poll number 2. What is your opinion regarding Teams expanding to provide all telephony and UC features known to its competitors? Basically saying, will Teams catch up with the competition and offer the entire UC and technology suite? Okay, so there's no timeline on this. It's more about just an opinion. So what is your opinion regarding Teams expanding to provide all telephony and UC features known to its competitors' market? Because up until now, they've been not necessarily strong in that area, so to speak. Okay, so I'll give you all a few seconds here to please vote. And some interesting results behind the scenes as I can see it. I'll give everybody another couple of seconds here. Okay, so we'll end the poll. Take a quick snapshot again. And I will share the results. And here are the results. So likely 48%, followed by maybe 40%. Definitely, you know, a small 8, never a small 4. So I think, in my opinion, Microsoft has pleasantly shocked me personally about how they've kind of caught up with the industry. Again, they're trying to reinvent some of what we do as standard process here, or process when I'm in my Canadian mode. So, okay, let me finish this out. Thanks, everyone. That was great. So recaps and happenings in the last week. Well, many thanks again to Cindy and the entire crew for, and the AEX team last week for the audit and expense management group for their continued insights. Part 5 will be coming. We're working on that as we speak. And again, for any SCTC member, a replay of all the parts 1 through 4 are available, okay, for review. Great material from everybody. Thank you, Cindy and the team. Carrie's Law Task Force continues on Fridays at 1. They're currently developing documentation. In the next few weeks, you will see, we'll have a fireside chat for members only, sharing the SCTC results of the task force and the documentation that will be available for marketing purposes with the entire group. Okay, and that's, by the way, for all SCTC members, which includes both consultants and vendor affiliates, VAC members, okay? I saw a very interesting piece on Forrester this past week, and I wanted to bring it to your attention. They have their 2021 predictions, and they're saying that 30% of firms will increase spend on the cloud, security, and risk, networks, and mobility. Makes a lot of sense. They're predicting a 300% increase to pre-COVID levels once COVID is done, or 21% this year compared to the 7% in 2019. So, you know, we've spoken, you know, with different individuals over time. Some are thinking 1/3 of the entire workforce. Some are thinking more, a little bit less. Our friends here at Forrester are predicting just over 20. 35% of companies will double down on workplace AI in 2021, this year. That's huge. 40% will increase on digital customer service interactions, which will basically bring AI and all of the automated elements that go into the new contact centers, if you will, to increase the customer experience and customer response, especially in light of COVID. So aha moments will continue this week. So when you hear something that is an aha, you just chat it in the window. I'm assuming that this week and next week, we will have a lot of chat and questions from everybody. So please chat your question in the window. I'll either call on you, or I'll ask the question of Kevin to inspire us and to respond to that. Okay. So if you can, please mute today. So again, we can, keep attention on Kevin here. And so this week, again, we've got Kevin. I will moderate, but Kevin will give you the lowdown on Microsoft Teams. Kevin, again, will be on next week, and he's going to tell you all about what's new and what's good and the gotchas, which is fantastic. So let me go to this. Steve O'Brien, are you ready? Or someone from Extreme, right? Nancy is on with us.
Yes, it'll be Dave Coleman.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Dave. So
Welcome.
yeah, I spoke to Steve recently, and he let me quote this. There's a problem with network complexity. We see this all the time. We hear consultants complain about this. I do, at least, and I know many of us do too, about the complexities of network. That always seems to be the gap in terms of getting a network up properly for voice over IP and UC, of course. So shifting to the cloud, offers a solution, as we all see. It's more, flexible, it's less complex, lowers operating costs. We've seen, of course, all of that as we've moved anybody to the cloud. But the complexity of getting to the cloud is, an interesting, piece of this too. So I'm gonna have our friends over at Extreme share their quick infomercial thoughts here.
Okay, thanks very much. Hi, I'm David Coleman. I'm David Coleman from the Office of the CTO of Extreme Networks, and I'm also the author of many books about wireless networking and security. Next slide, please.
Sure.
So if you're not familiar with Extreme Networks, we are a publicly traded company with 50,000 customers in 80 countries. We offer complete end-to-end networking solutions from the access edge all the way to the data center. We've been a leader in the Gartner Wired and Wireless Magic Quadrant for 3 years in a row now, and Extreme is also known as the leader in fabric networking. But what I'm most proud of is that we are the fastest growing enterprise cloud networking company. Next slide, please.
Sure.
As I am sure everyone in this group is aware, in recent years, there's been in the entire networking industry, we've been in the middle of a paradigm shift towards cloud services for management, visibility, and analytics. Our cloud management platform, Extreme Cloud IQ, is device agnostic as we manage APs, switches, and branch routers. And we keep the licensing simple for the customer, as a device license can be used interchangeably for any of those networking devices. Our cloud is also deployment agnostic with your choice of public, private, or on-premises solution. And the licenses that I just mentioned are portable between all three of those choices. Unlike our competitors, we're cloud agnostic. Our customers have the choice of scalable cloud management via Google, Microsoft, or AWS. And we offer the customer a choice of either 90-day visibility or even unlimited data retention at no extra cost. Finally, we take protection of our customers' data very seriously, which is why we are the first company that requires third-party auditing of our cloud security practices, and we hold multiple cloud security certifications. Last slide, please.
Sure.
So anyway, thank you very much for the time and the opportunity. If you want to learn more, please reach out to Tom Fitzgerald or myself via email or LinkedIn. And please take advantage of our offer for free access to the Gartner 2020 Magic Quadrant for wired and wireless LAN access. That URL that's posted will either be live today or later tomorrow. And thank you very much for your time.
Well, thanks, David. I know I always like free. I know everybody on the call likes free, so I'm sure you'll get a lot of hits. I know I'll be there a little bit later today myself. Thanks, Stephen, for coordinating this too behind the scenes. Appreciate that. Thanks, David.
Did you do it?
Chuck, our president, a word from our sponsor. Okay, he's either quiet or he's not on. I did see him on. He might be muted. Chuck? Okay, well, let me move on. Kevin, I'm gonna stop my share now so you can start. And I look forward to your sharing, Kevin. So again, everyone, please, chat in the sidebar. And if you have a question or a thought or an aha moment, again, I'll direct questions to Kevin, or I'll call on you to ask any of those questions. Okay, Kevin, over to you.
Okay, let me just get this going. Okay. Well, thanks for the opportunity. I'm going to talk a little bit about what you need to know related to Microsoft Teams and hit on why customers are so interested. And I think that the poll, what I took away was only 4% weren't interested in Microsoft Teams. So there's varying levels of interest. But, I'm going to try to cover 30 key facts in 30 minutes. I started numbering them, but then there was more than 30. But there's lots of information here. So sorry, I just need to. Okay, so I wanted to start just so with 6 key, quick facts about myself. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and I grew up there in Farmington, Michigan until I was 13 and then moved. People say, did you move by yourself? No, I moved with my family because I was only 13. So I moved to Toronto, Canada, where then I stayed. I got interested in technology by developing video games for the Commodore 64, really for the VIC-20, developed for JACTAC, but they held it for their new machine, the Commodore 64. And part of that, interest in technology is a real strong belief that technology, it should help people. So it should either entertain or educate or assist. As Steve said, right now I focus entirely on the Microsoft ecosystem. In the past, I led the Bell Canada UC practice, which was related to both Cisco and Teams, and Microsoft at the time, which nobody believed could be a PBX. But it turned out that over time, people just started saying, you're the Microsoft expert. So I tried to, be agnostic for a while, but then the audience voted. And so about 10 years ago, just doubled down, co-founded Enable UC to help organizations and vendors get the most out of the Microsoft ecosystem. And the last kind of key fact about me is I'm super passionate about analytics because that's the best mechanism, the best yardstick I've been able to find to move people from opinions to really being able to measure what's working. And with that, I'll move into some facts about what we're, here to talk about today, Microsoft Teams. And speaking kind of statistics, it is clear that Teams is working for a huge number of organizations. The growth in Teams has exploded. I mean, this is the typical hockey stick. By October of 2020, Teams had 115 million daily active users. And that's not just people like logging on to Teams because it's logging on automatically. That's people doing something in Teams. Now, that's not necessarily people using it as their phone system, but certainly a lot of people using it, including large organizations. So, there's at least 20 organizations with over 100,000 Teams users. Accenture just published some statistics on their use of Teams, and they have like 400,000 users. There's a lot of, people think of knowledge workers, but there's 183,000 educational institutions. And certainly in the healthcare space, and I believe this was November of last year, there was 34 million healthcare meetings held just in 1 month alone. So Teams is being used by a tremendous number of organizations, and that's definitely increasing. But one of the things, to think of is that Microsoft Teams, it's kind of like that Swiss Army knife. It's really many things, and it depends on the organization. It can be a chat tool, a collaboration tool, an online meeting tool, a video conferencing solution. Yes, it can be your new phone system, your PBX, and it's also a workflow automation platform and a social engagement platform. Microsoft says it's the hub for basically getting things done. And increasingly, all of the Microsoft offerings, Satya Nadella at the start of 2021 started talking about it being the glue that binds everything together. That being said, I mean, Teams is not really seen primarily just as a phone system. So if somebody's looking just for a phone system, maybe, and I'll talk about that a little more, maybe Teams isn't, the perfect match. But because Teams is many things, it rightly can be seen as complex. So, Teams gets bashed a lot if you just compare it to, let's say, a legacy phone system that did one thing really well. It was a great phone system. And then you compare it to Teams, people will say, and rightly so, that Teams is much more complicated. And that's because Teams is built on top of the entire Office 365 bundle. It's built on top of, Active Directory and Azure AD and all of the compliance and security and e-discovery that comes with Office 365. So that makes it complex, but for the right organization, that also makes it powerful.
So Kevin,
This is something that I want this group to take away. It's that Teams absolutely can serve as an enterprise grade PBX system. It can be the primary or the sole voice system for large customers. Now that's not saying for all customers, but certainly for many large customers are using it as their telephony platform, and increasingly other, medium and large customers are looking for this to be the case. And next week, I'll talk about, more specifically about some limitations, but, I want to just get this point across that it is a worthy enterprise grade PBX system.
Kevin, before you get into more detail, just a quick thought. Microsoft's been working on this for close to 15 years, right? It started with LCS, then it went to OCS, then to Link, then to Skype, and there was a lot of rebranding during those periods, and now Teams. So what makes Teams different than these earlier, versions, in your opinion?
Well, I'd say, right from when it was OCSR2, I mean, that's really when it started being capable of being, a medium and large size PBX. And then one of the things that, Skype for Business absolutely was adopted. I worked with, for example, Deloitte Canada, then Deloitte US, then Deloitte globally to roll out Skype for Business as their enterprise PBX to 327,000 people. So it absolutely can scale. What's new about Teams is when it was done on premises, that was a lot of work. So, you think about Deloitte, 327,000 people, 44 countries, a lot of different regulations. Teams as a voice system, because it's in the cloud, it becomes a lot easier, both certainly for small, but for medium and also for large organizations. So I think the ease of adding telephony to Teams when you may have started using it as a collaboration platform is why there's a tremendous interest in adding PSTN access to Teams.
Thank you.
That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if we talk about,
and they've also embraced the whole carrier space, right? Which they were kind of shy over the years about doing, but they really embraced it. Now they've got, of course, I know you're going to talk about direct routing and, the certifications of SBC providers, et cetera. But yeah, it's interesting how they really turned the corner on that.
Absolutely. So if we look at, why organizations adopt Teams, a lot of times people adopt Teams, and this starts as Teams and Teams for Voice, because they bought into that Office 365 bundle. If they have E5 licenses, but if they've got E3 licenses, or the organization believes and has found out that this bundle proposition that Microsoft has always been good at, with the original Office bundle, which was Word and Excel and PowerPoint, maybe at the start, none of those might have been best of breed, but the power of the bundle and the ever-growing Office 365 bundle has been shown to deliver tremendous value and the integration across the parts, and really Teams is that primary integrator, that hub where work gets done. The other reason that Microsoft Teams is, pre-COVID, but also certainly during the pandemic, it's proven to work. So people that were doubtful and had to rapidly switch to Teams, it actually worked. Maybe people were surprised on that. So now they're saying, hey, this worked better than we expected. Maybe we want to add voice on top of it. It has been rapidly evolving and improving. Since 3 years ago when Teams was announced, Microsoft has put, they said originally 95% of their engineering effort, they shifted it from Skype for Business to Teams. And in that 3 years, it has been rapidly evolving and improving. And in the last year, because of some great competition from Zoom and WebEx Teams and to a lesser degree Slack, Microsoft and its engineering group has stepped up their game, and they've brought a whole bunch of features to be competitive and then potentially to push beyond that. And the last thing is Microsoft Teams, it's a platform. It's a platform for work, workflow automation. It has great third-party integration. Microsoft has always been about building out. It has the largest group of, the developer community. So, if you don't find a feature in Teams, it's evolving and it might be released, and Microsoft has a very extensive roadmap that you can check out. But if it's not available directly from Microsoft or on Microsoft's roadmap, it's likely that there's a third-party application or a third party that can extend this. Now, that being said, there's a whole bunch of reasons why Microsoft Teams might not be something that you want to look at in general or for your voice platform. Some organizations have data residency issues. So if you're in, for example, Switzerland, you need to keep all the data in Switzerland. That was easier with Skype for Business. At the beginning of the month at Microsoft Ignite, they announced some additional data residency controls for Microsoft Teams that might address multinational issues in this regard. Certainly, if your customers are based in North America, this isn't an issue. There may be some very specific, in some cases, missing features. I'll talk about the telephony features that Teams brings to bear. But if an organization is hell-bent on doing something as they've always done it, and they're not willing to kind of change, then maybe there is a specific missing feature. That's a very rare case. if you need to operate fully locally, Teams is and will always be a cloud-based solution. So there are specific organizations that say, I want everything on-prem, or I want a highly distributed system, like Deloitte Canada, when they started, had 43 individual PBXs. They, of course, centralized. But if somebody wants to keep all those distributed PBXs, that's not Teams. Or if you only have basic phone requirements, Teams is many things beyond just a phone system. If all you want and all you need as an organization is a phone system, Teams may be overkill. Or if, for example, you're not a Microsoft shop, if you haven't bought into the Office 365 bundle proposition, if you're a Cisco shop or if you're a Google Apps shop, maybe Microsoft Teams as a voice solution isn't the right solution for you. And really organizations that solely or primarily just want a phone system, or if you're looking only for a contact center, you probably will not choose to fully voice enable Teams. So it's good for many, not for all. One of the things to keep in mind.
Kevin, let me just pause you. Sorry, a couple of
Yeah.
questions here from the audience.
Okay.
Why is Teams, this is from Hamid, why is Teams more appropriate for large organizations than smaller ones?
I wouldn't say it's more appropriate for larger organizations. I would say, like if 10 of us tomorrow decide to create a new company and we wanted to quickly have a PBX, I mean, it would be very easy to turn up Office 365 and Microsoft carrier plans. And, in a day or two, we could be up and running. So I think my points was really just making sure people understood that it is absolutely capable of handling larger organizations. Because I think at the beginning, people thought, okay, yeah, Teams can be my voice system if I've got a small, if I got tens of people, hundreds of people. So I would say, it definitely now can be small, medium, and large.
Okay, terrific. And then Mark Fletcher has a quick thought. Mark, go ahead. You want the mic? Okay, I'll ask Mark's question.
Yep.
While Teams handles the UC user, what about the basic telephony use cases for like analog device workers that don't need a computer? They're still needed in the environment, especially in healthcare and hospital rooms as examples. Are the right cross section of use cases being looked at by Microsoft, or are they looking at the industry with blinders?
Yeah. So
by the way, Mark Fletcher has no opinion. Okay. Just
yeah, there you go. No. So I definitely don't think, Microsoft and its partner ecosystem, I think that they're not looking at it with blinders. I think they are increasingly trying to address a wider set of use cases. Putting like hospital phones, which often might be, sometimes they could be so cheap that they were disposable, or in hospitality. That may not be the best use case from a financial perspective, and also from a resiliency perspective for Microsoft Teams. But I do think certainly for a bunch of the hospital staffs and certainly in healthcare, Microsoft is making inroads, and they're augmenting some of the features inside of Teams, both in the telephony space, but also in terms of like emergency alerts to reach healthcare professionals, et cetera. So I think you're going to have to look at it carefully. And maybe next week, I'll make a note to just kind of talk about what some of the limitations are that might make it a harder fit in those particular environments.
Yeah, because I know that we spoke to one healthcare client with over 50,000 endpoints recently and wanted to consider Teams as one of the alternatives, outside the traditional vendors, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's worthy of consideration. I mean, I would say my opinion, and not to kind of offend any of the vendors that are making Teams desk phones, but they're still not the best desk phones, right? So if your primary use case is a desk phone, that's a non-authenticated user, just like an old phone that sits there and anybody can pick it up. That is not, how most organizations come to Microsoft Teams. So I think you got to do some more comparisons.
For sure.
But one of the things that I think it's important as people look at, voice systems and legacy, voice systems and going forward, is there is a decreased need for PSTN calling. Most people that adopt Teams, the last piece of the puzzle, the last piece of functionality that they look at is adding PSTN calling. Because in large organizations, if you look at, for example, like if you look at Deloitte globally, there are people that never place or receive a PSTN call. And why is that? Well, that's because they spend their time, for example, like what we're doing in meetings, that we're not using the PSTN. Increasingly with people working distributedly, they were using, calls over the top, right? So video adoption, which we've seen skyrocket, that lowers the need for PSTN calling. Also, Teams and other platforms as well, but the Microsoft Teams mobile client, which doesn't use the PSTN to place calls and receive them on your Android or iPhone device, and it's integrated, it appears like a regular call, but it's not using the PSTN. And the mobile client, Michael Finneran, who's also one of our VC strategies experts, he may disagree, but the mobile client finally for Teams on the iPhone and Android is really, really good. And in some ways, it's actually better than the desktop application. And they're taking some of the speed that the mobile client runs on for Microsoft Teams, and they're bringing it to the desktop. So there is a decreased need for PSTN calling. If we look at a large global organization, maybe 1/3 or less of the communication, both external and internal, actually touches the PSTN. So, I always say first solve the 2/3 and then deal with the 1/3. But PSTN calling is important. So let's talk about the different ways that you can add voice to Microsoft Teams. There's really two primary approaches. There's Microsoft as a carrier. That's easy. So as I said before, you can go into the portal, the Teams admin portal. You can add a calling plan. They're basically $12 per user per month in US dollars. And you assign a phone number to a user, and it's easy. So the good thing, it's easy, and it's a great way if you're small or if you are large and you want to test out PSTN voice with Teams. The problem is it's not available in all geographies. So if you're outside of North America and you're a multinational, it's available in a bunch of countries, but maybe not all. It doesn't provide integration with existing equipment. So for example, there was a question about analog devices, that you can't deal with Microsoft calling plans. It may not be as financially attractive because PSTN calling is decreasing in many large organizations. Paying per user, the Microsoft calling plans are named licenses. So you have to assign them to an individual user. Other ways like direct routing, which is the second, that lets you buy SIP channels, concurrent channels, often is a lot more financially attractive. And Microsoft carriers, if you have multiple tenants, which some organizations do for that data residency issue, that can be more complicated. 80% of medium and large organizations choose another approach, which is direct routing. This is available worldwide. You can integrate your existing PBX and analog devices, and you can also, in many cases, leverage your existing contract. So if the organization has a multi-year commitment to a particular carrier, a lot of times you can just move it over and, let's say move to SIP trunking and then use direct routing. The cons with direct routing, it is more complex to design and configure. If it involves, you put a session border controller on-prem, that's how you used to do it. Now increasingly, people, carriers and others are offering direct routing as a service. So then it's not a CapEx spend because the SBC is either operated by the carrier on an OpEx basis, or in fact, it's a virtual SBC running as software, often inside the Microsoft Azure cloud, but it could be in other clouds. And it could require managing on-prem equipment if it is on-prem, but increasingly you have options to put that in the cloud, and then you don't have to worry about that management. So it just ends up being cheaper than a Microsoft carrier plan, especially as you have more users on. So that's the other way, but there is a third approach that was announced at Microsoft Ignite at the beginning of March. It's called Operator Connect. It isn't available, but there's some details around that. That really, as the diagram shows there, the idea is that the carrier, the operator, provides the PSTN access, the SIP trunk, or the new derived SIP trunk. The SBC is managed by, whether it's virtual, by the operator. And the idea is just like Microsoft carrier, Microsoft as the carrier, you should be able to manage all of this directly from the Teams admin center. Here's the initial people on the right that have signed up for Operator Connect. Maybe towards the end of April, there'll be more details, but this was kind of a third approach. But, you know, to Steve's point, Microsoft is providing lots of options. This Operator Connect is really Microsoft becoming much more like, let's say, an 8x8 or a Ring Central, where it's one-stop shopping. Operator Connect, there's really nothing in it for the carriers or for the operators that you see on the right-hand side. I feel that they're just in the game because they feel they need to be in the game. This is something that provides Microsoft with visibility around DIDs, et cetera, that they don't have if you use direct routing. So lots of ways to bring PSTN calling into Microsoft Teams.
So Kevin, let me pause real quick, if you can stay on that slide, if you don't mind.
Yep. Oh.
So I think bandwidth.com is also part of that group, and they're actually on the call today. So I just wanted to do a shout out to my colleague Lauren over there. Okay.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions. Mark Moed, you want to ask the question?
Sure. I mean, we're seeing a tremendous increase with Microsoft Teams as well. But I mean, most of it's from the direct routing perspective,
Yep.
Specifically because we deal with a lot of high-end call centers, and what we're seeing is just keeping the PBX under the hood. And how we're seeing it is that Microsoft Teams is mostly looked at as an endpoint, right? Whether that's your mobile phone, whether it's a soft client, whether that's an IP phone. We're seeing the adoption of like Microsoft Teams looking as more as an endpoint. Of course, you could do your audio web conferencing from it and many other features that Teams provides. But that's just what we're seeing a lot. Are you seeing that equally as well? Where again, the PBX is a traditional, you know, Mitel, Avaya, Cisco, et cetera, are under the hood, and then Teams is on the front end.
Yeah, I mean, so I think people absolutely explore that. That's not a good long-term place to be, because you're basically paying for two things. Like Teams is a PBX, right? So to use it as an endpoint, you know, I'm a big believer in the simplest solution that meets the requirements. So it's a good transitional step. You say, hey, I got a Cisco PBX. I'm gonna, you know, I've already got my SIP trunks coming into that. I'll have, fork the calls or whatever. And over time, you know, some people have Cisco, some people have Teams. But I don't find that that's a good long-term strategy. So I think that that's a good migration path. Certainly organizations like Ring Central, like, you know, whether it's Mitel, Avaya, they want you to stay in that kind of, it's a bit of a Frankenstein mashup where you've got call control in two places, and the administration of that, I think over time becomes complicated. So in short, a good migration path, but I don't suggest that large organizations kind of stay with two call control providers.
I'll just finish off just by telling you just some of the other reasons why I mentioned that. Because, you know, there's third-party phones, there's a third-party contact center bolt-on, there's third-party applications, as opposed to, you know, one of the larger PBX manufacturers where they're all encompassing with all of their contact center, their endpoints, et cetera. That's again, this is just what we're hearing as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know, one of the things is a lot of people that move to Skype for Business and move to Teams, they're self-selecting for not needing or choosing to deploy many desktop devices. And so if your organization absolutely needs desktop devices because that's what you've decided, then maybe, you know, keeping a traditional PBX where you can have less expensive endpoints may make sense when you do the math and the financial calculations. One of the things that I would say is, do not assume if you're moving to Teams voice, do not start by saying, okay, because everybody had a desk phone, I'm going to give them a desk phone. That's a terrible strategy. And organizations that do that, and I have been involved with ones that didn't listen, we deployed to one office 3,500 desk phones that then the analytics, which I love, can show no one uses the desk phones. Why don't they? Because they were knowledge workers. They have to figure out how to use a laptop when they work at a client site or work from home. So they know how to use the laptop. They get into their office. It's just a pain in the butt to also learn how to use this desk phone. And why would they? If they have a Bluetooth headset, it's connected to the laptop. So the desk phones just sat there. So I would say, if your organization isn't wed to desk phones and you've given people laptops, start by giving no phones, and then as need be, give the phones, right? So another organization who did listen moved into an office, 4,000 users, 3,700 users. They deployed 47 phones, and those phones were only on, it was a multi-floor building. It was only on the floor where predominantly they had client meetings. So, don't assume that because people had desk phones, they need desk phones. I think certainly through the pandemic, people have learned how to use headsets. That would be my advice.
So Kevin, also, from Mark's point of view, Mark is one of the largest Mitel dealers. Okay, so he's looking at it from an integration point of view, and obviously, competitors like Vonage, NEC Blue, and others are looking to figure out how can they, capitalize on the Microsoft Teams trend and integrate into their products. So continuing, how is Teams positioned for first responders? Julie Bernhardt is asking.
Yeah, I would say it's not really targeted to that market.
Okay, understood. And then one more, Dick Kaufman's asking, how about addressing robocalls?
I think some of the new protocols are being supported by the SBC providers, but there is ability to kind of block, numbers inside of Teams or whatever. But I think it has to kind of be better addressed kind of at the periphery, right? So I don't see it's kind of as big of a Teams play, depending on, as I understand the question that's being asked.
Yep. Yeah. Dick, you want to ask any further beyond that to Kaufman? Yep, you're on mute, Dick.
Identity and security access to Teams. In other words, can somebody else get into a Teams conference and just start pirating things?
No, so this is where I would say Teams, like Microsoft and Office 365. I would argue Microsoft has one of the best, security platforms and secure clouds. Certainly they argue, but I think that that's true. And some of the complexity around Microsoft Teams is because it has a very strong identity platform built on top of, Active Directory, Azure Active Directory, which most large and medium organizations are already using. So that is why, for instance, people argue that, hey, it's a lot easier to be a guest, invite a guest to be part of a Slack channel than it is to be part of a Microsoft Teams channel. And that's true because Microsoft, inherits this identity, compliance, e-discovery platform of Office 365. So I think that's a real positive in terms of security.
Well, thanks, Kevin. Okay, I'm through with you in the questions for a moment, at least.
Yeah, so let me just try to get through these last points, and then, sure. And then we've got next week as well. So yeah, if the questions, you can get them to me, Steve, and I can start by addressing those. So to make Teams your phone system, Microsoft, on the right, there's the 35 phone system features. There's hundreds of phone system features, but like Microsoft said, look, these are the ones that when they went out, these are the ones that are most required. And once again, their approach wasn't to necessarily make everything work the same way it did. So let's say you had overhead paging. Well, the argument is, well, you don't need to do that because you can IM somebody or chat with a group. So it's not about necessarily, doing things the way that they were always done, but being able to address the business function. But to make Teams your phone system, you need licenses, and I'll talk briefly about what that looks like. You need a connection to the PSTN, and we talked about the 3 ways to do that, 2 plus the bonus 1 coming. You obviously need to configure it, which means you need to have expertise to set up, number normalization and set up E911 calling. And yes, you can handle all the emergency carries law, all of the requirements, for emergency calling globally that's required. And then, technically you may not need number 4, which is ongoing monitoring and analytics. But if you want to keep it running, to the end user satisfaction, you definitely need to do that. So let's just drill down briefly on this. So in terms of Teams licensing, one of the reasons that, people start with Teams, it's effectively free to do a lot of the functionality. So and Microsoft did very successfully back in OCS, Link, Skype for Business. It was a bit of a Trojan horse. They said, hey, you can use Teams for free, and you can in fact make peer-to-peer calls. You can have meetings. You don't have PSTN access, but you can do the collaboration piece. And then users said, hey, I can actually, these voice meetings or voice calls, they work pretty well. And those were all, VoIP calls just internally. But then this is why organizations are now looking to add the additional, phone licensing on top of it. So if you got an E5 license, that's the kind of Cadillac license. You already have the phone system license, which if not, that's an add-on at $8 per user per month. Many organizations start with Teams as collaboration, then they say, oh, that's great, we can do meetings and stuff, but we want people to be able to dial in. That's the audio conferencing add-on, that's $4 per user per month. If they want it to be a phone system, so to be able to make PSTN calls, they need that phone system license. And then, as I said, if they, Microsoft as your carrier, if you just pay $12 per user per month, you get effectively unlimited domestic calling, 3,000 minutes that's pooled per user. That's more than people are going to use. So effectively unlimited domestic calling for $12 per user per month, a good way to start, or they look at direct routing. So those are kind of the licensing tiers.
Hold on. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Okay. So the audio conferencing, does that include collab, screen share, or no?
That audio conferencing add-in allows people to dial in using PSTN inbound, right? So Microsoft publishes, all kinds of local conferencing numbers. So that's with the basic Teams license, you can run meetings and collab and all of that stuff, and people can do it as long as they have an internet connection. So really the audio conferencing add-on says, hey, but sometimes, before COVID, people might have more often been in their cars and they want to dial into the meeting. Now, without the audio conferencing add-in, if people have the Teams mobile client, they can join the meeting with video, voice, screen sharing from the Teams mobile client. It's either over Wi-Fi or let's say they're in the car, it works pretty darn well over cellular data as well. So audio conferencing add-on just if you want to have dial-in PSTN access.
And just in it from an executive summary point of view, what are the differences between E1, E3, and E5?
I'm just refer you to a link because there's a whole bunch of differences across the entire Office 365 workload. Predominantly the difference, if we look at from a Teams and telephony perspective, is E5 includes the audio conferencing add-in. It includes the phone system license. So if you got E5, you've got everything that you need to just then, add the PSTN access. But yeah, I'll bring a chart or a link.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. So, and then the last piece on Teams analytics, I talked about it as that being important. Analytics, from my point of view, it's really key across Office 365 and across Teams beyond telephony. I mean, it's important to use the analytics that are built in, and there's super rich analytics. I mean, in some ways, there's more analytics than most people even know about, and it's a shame they're not using. So if you're running Office 365 and if you don't have somebody regularly looking at the analytics around usage and adoption, quality, reliability, and user satisfaction, then you're doing the organization a disservice. There's all these different types of analytics, including the call quality dashboard that shows you why, what network segments are problematic, why calls are failing. And this really is key to knowing what people are using. It's also key beyond just the technical aspect to knowing where maybe more communications, change management, and training is required. So, key takeaway, use the analytics and plan for analytics use if you're if you're working with an organization deploying Microsoft Teams.
Sure.
I did, once again, just want to quickly touch on devices. There are a huge choice of devices, whether those are personal devices from, desk phones or headsets to room devices that work with Microsoft Teams. And as I said, there are many organizations that are self-selecting for Teams. So if they're considering Teams as opposed to, let's say, considering Mitel, Avaya, Cisco, they may have already said, hey, Teams makes sense because we either have very agile people that are moving around, and hot desking, they don't want to have to, hot desking looks like they bring their laptop and they set it down wherever they are, as opposed to doing something with desk phones. But there are a huge set and an increasing number of set. And because of that 115 million daily active users of Teams, and because of the growth of Teams, vendors are absolutely coming on board. Direct routing as a service, vendors are coming on board almost every week. Microsoft has a certification process for both the devices and the vendors. And if you're a new vendor and want to be certified, Microsoft is saying, whoa, our queue is full for the next 6 months because so many vendors want a piece of this explosive growth inside the Microsoft ecosystem. You have a lot of choices that exist, and increasing choices going forward. And then I just wanted to kind of conclude with a look at a few customer needs. So if we look at a typical customer, and I'll let you read the slide, but most of the customers, as I said at the beginning, they've already adopted and bought into this bundle of this Office 365, or now this broader Microsoft 365 bundle. So they have this complete suite of tools. And then they typically say, hey, maybe I'll just add it. Maybe it'll become my PBX. Either their existing PBX is end of life or it's needing an upgrade. So, typically they go through this path. They say, well, okay, maybe I'll just get what I need from Microsoft. I got a whole bunch of my IT stack from Microsoft. So they'll look at calling plans. But as I said, there's often two blockers. Either it doesn't make sense because paying on a named per user is financially expensive, or they say, hey, I'm a multinational and I can't get what I need from Microsoft calling plans. So that's why they look at direct routing. As well, Teams is satisfying the needs, and that interest level is going up because as everybody had to work from home, or most people, many large organizations, if you poll them, they cite Teams as the primary tool, if they were a Microsoft shop, that enabled their business to continue and to thrive when everybody shifted to work from home. Now, interestingly enough, Zoom also, for some medium and large enterprises, played a significant role as well, you know, for internal and especially external meetings. And I mentioned that, you know, Zoom started out back in March of 2020, being able to display many more participants. And so people said, hey, Teams at the time was only displaying 4 people, and people said, this is not acceptable. But, you know, Zoom really pushed Microsoft so that things like breakout rooms and the 7x7 Hollywood squares, you know, Teams offered those as of October and December of 2020. So, you know, right now, organizations are saying, hey, now Teams is meeting the need. Some organizations still have Zoom and they're doing that. Okay, where are we going to use Zoom and how can we make Zoom and Teams work together? So good for Zoom, but certainly then the last piece of the puzzle for many organizations is this PSTN access.
So Kevin, I know you've got one more slide, but can we start with that next week if that's all right with you? We're actually 2 minutes over. Is that all right?
Okay.
Okay, cool. So yeah, plenty of chat from everybody on the side today. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for attending. This has been a great session so far. And we're looking forward to having you back next week, Kevin.
Well, thank you very much. There's my contact information if you want to hit me up with a question ahead of next week's session, and then I can be prepared for it.
Perfect. Thanks, Kevin. And thanks everyone for joining. We'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Happy
everybody.
Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter, everybody. Yeah.
Easter.
Bye, all.
Thanks,
Thank
Kevin.
Happy Easter, Fox.
Stay away from too much chocolate.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. That was really good. Hey, Kevin, where are you located now?
I am just outside Toronto and Mississauga, Ontario.
Oh, okay. I'm in Uxbridge.
Oh, okay, very
But
good.
we'll
That's
meet up.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Take care. Thanks again. That was great. Have a
Okay,
good day,
bye.
everyone.
Bye for now.
Hey, Kevin, this is Barb, real quick. When Steve Layden mentioned he's talking to a client hospital with 50,000 users,
Yes.
I just did the math on the local calling plans.
Yes.
Times $12 per user per month for calling plans, that hospital would have to spend $600,000 a month. Is that right?
Well, it is, but that's why like
Makes no
nobody
sense.
nobody does that because you know that's why you do direct routing and you pay by channel, right? So you
Right,
pay like
okay.
$18 per concurrent channel.
Exactly.
Barb, I'll get you a discount.
Oh, yeah, I would think we need some help with this. Oh my gosh. So in that hospital scenario, how are you handling disaster recovery? I mean, I don't understand it because look, when there is a problem and the communication system goes down, the local authorities will not route ambulances to those ERs, which effectively takes that hospital out of the picture until their systems are back online.
Yeah. So Kevin,
That's a good point, actually.
It's a serious thing. I mean, I work with hospitals. It's like, holy cow. We've seen these kinds of problems. We've seen carriers with SIP where they don't allow redirecting the numbers, which was, Mark, what my question was about with, can you redirect the phone numbers on those lines to a service that can be made available? I mean, it's a serious thing.
Yeah. A lot of
Everybody
carriers
forgets about the emergency calling piece and all of the, not saying stop technology because I got a wall phone that I still need to support, but in the new technology, we got to figure out how to support those devices. You walk into a large institution like healthcare, you look at the number of analog devices that are critical life safety devices all over that facility. Every patient room bed. Now, can they be replaced with other technology? Potentially, but until that becomes a reality, you've still got this hanging chad of, hey, what happens to all of these other devices? And $12 a month for a calling plan, is not going to cut it. And everybody likes to say, oh, E911 is handled by the SIP carrier. Yeah, okay, go get the bill for that, because that's not free either.
Yeah, I think that be careful with that $12 because that's not ever for a large organization. So it's
obviously, yeah.
Right. And the thing is, yeah, absolutely. Any voice over IP implementation, like when the power fails, if all of the switches and all of the network routers aren't on UPS, it's a problem. So there definitely needs to be, I mean, organizations put analog phones on every floor to deal with power outage situations. In a hospital scenario, carriers absolutely, and this is why direct routing as a service from a carrier, they can do automatic rerouting to whether it's mobile phones, analog phones, et cetera. But that's absolutely something that you got to figure out, right? It's of
Sure.
critical importance, like life or death.
Yeah, and they're little
Well,
minute use cases, but they're
absolutely.
important ones.
Yeah.
You know,
Like
listen, I
elevator
have to tell
phones.
you that, you think about those analog phones that, you mentioned that, gee, there's analog phones on every floor. Well, there's some relays in the equipment room connected to the PBX that makes those work. And when we look in the new SIP environment, everything over IP, it's like, where are those equivalencies? Where is that surety that we're not going to cut our first responders off of the knees by rolling out technology? We have to be careful to protect people.
Oh, absolutely.
I
And that's
forgot
why
all about those. Those, what were those? Those called Gordon Capes units.
Yes, Gordon Capes unit.
Oh my
Ancient
God.
technology, right? Like a
Oh my-
1,000 years ago. But I mean, that's how those analog phones work, right? It's like,
Yeah.
holy cow. So you talk about tearing down all the PTSNs and, we can just take all this stuff out and we don't need it. And it's like, well, what if we're having a really bad day?
Yeah.
What do we do when hell freezes over? Because that's really what disaster recovery is, right?
Right.
Get out the ice skates, folks. We better have had a plan ahead of time. It's important. And frankly, I have to tell you, when I look at cloud providers, I have a really hard time. I've been in telecom since '78. I have a hard time taking it seriously because you haven't always, frequently the serious questions about telecommunications have not been addressed.
Well, I would say that for specific use cases, right? And that's why you're not seeing like Teams is not going gangbusters in hospitals, right? And there's a reason for that. I mean, it might be in certain clinical settings that are adjunct to the hospital might be fantastic, right? And the fact that people move around and work from home, and that might, be part of it. But that's the other reason that Teams isn't, I'm not saying Teams should be for your contact center, right?
Right.
So,
No, Kevin, I totally
Julie-
understand that. I think that
Julie and
that
Kevin,
best of breed is a thing.
we need to stop this because the SCTC has another Zoom meeting. at
oh, okay, no worries,
So
sorry.
We all need to hang up. Thank
Okay,
you.
bye.
Great
Okay,
job.
bye.
What's the priority here, Barb? Come on.
Sorry.
Always all the troublemakers are left at the
I
end.
tell you what.
That's always the fun